what keyword ranking strategies are you currently using? The entire goal for ranking is how many orders can we possibly get through that one specific search term. Now, I know there's a lot of talk in our space around like, oh, target like long tail search variations of the keyword and all that stuff. That does help. It's not going to have the most impact. So the most impact for any ranking keyword is going to be getting orders specifically through that search, getting a lot of orders. So we don't just want one, we want a lot. And also making sure that our click-through rate and our conversion rate are really high on those key terms. So I'll be honest with you, the biggest impact on ranking you can have is really by picking the right keywords. So if your question was, how do I figure out what keywords do I rank on? I would say like look for things that you can afford to spend a lot, i.e. you're not losing money, meaning ACoS isn't like so crazy high that you can't afford it. You want to look for things that you have really good conversion rates. Bonus points if you have good click-through rates here, but I would go for conversion rates over click-through rates. And then you just want to like put money towards that. Now, if you say, how do I rank on this specific keyword, then that question is a little bit different. And I'm just going to tell you like push volume. Now, what I recognize is that me saying, hey, push volume through a one specific search might mean that that's not super profitable. So that's where I'm saying like the real trick is going to lie in the actual targets that you select to rank on. Other things, some pro tips and some pro hacks are more advanced but can be helpful here, is if you have a specific search where it's like crazy expensive and you just don't really have the budget for it. Again, that goes back to keyword selection. Make sure you're selecting keywords where you can afford to spend that budget on it. But if we're on a specific keyword, you want to make sure that you're showing high enough in search that you can really get those good conversions and get those eyeballs on the product. But maybe you can't afford a ton of clicks because there's a lot of clicks and they're really expensive. And use the budget as sort of a lever to cap or meter how much money you are spending for that ranking play. Now, how effective that is going to be how many orders your market is making, and that's relative. So when I talk about trying to get a large amount of orders, it's relative to the other competition that is on that particular search page. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Junglr. This is the time and the place where you can get answers to your Amazon advertising questions. Super excited to see what you guys are going to throw at me today. If you're listening in, first time catching this, welcome. We want to make sure that this segment is valuable for you. The way that you do that is by dropping your questions, whatever they may be, into the chat on whatever streaming platform you are listening in on. We pull them up, we get answers, we dive in, we do screen shares, and we just get super nitty-gritty with advertising. There is a lot to cover. There's always the basics, which I find that those are always things that people can use tips on, but there's a lot of things that are a little bit more advanced that you can ask questions to as well. So things like what point does DSP make sense? Things like AMC, people want to know about that. How do you go about getting access to AMC? How is it useful? What kind of insights can you pull out? And then the other thing that I find, and I am constantly surprised. I was going through an audit today of an account. They're a really large recognized brand, and so they have a ton of brand assets. A lot of times, smaller private label sellers, you guys are really struggling, like, because it can cost a lot to get things developed, especially in clothing where you need models and it's a whole thing to get video assets. But I'm always taken back when I look at brands that have all of those resources available, almost more resources than they know what to do with. And they're still not doing well when it comes to like sponsored brand assets. I can't tell you, like, this brand that I was auditing, there's thousands of SKUs and thousands of products, and like they only have a handful of videos running, and the videos that they're driving most of the impressions to aren't the ones that are converting the highest. So if you have any questions about like what makes a good video ad, how to go about building those, because there was an announcement that Amazon DSP is partnering with Netflix. There's other things in beta that involve video creatives in different ad types. And like, so we're a part of some betas and things that are running. And all I can tell you is that video is only going to get more and more important. Traditionally, Amazon ads really haven't been creative intensive, mostly because like in sponsored product ads, which is where most brands are putting the bulk of their budget, and I would say rightfully so, those don't involve any creatives, although that may change in the future. But as of right now, like the brands, everyone seems to be falling behind when it comes to creatives. I think because creatives just traditionally aren't like a huge platform. And then also the fact that creatives in like we have some brands that will give us assets and we'll say, okay, we need video assets for these items. And then they'll send us over like videos that they're running on, say, like Meta ads or other ones. And oftentimes Meta ads don't translate very well to like sponsor or like sponsored brands or Amazon creatives. So like there's a very unique formula that we've seen that works the best when it comes to Amazon. And I see most brands missing out on that, or sometimes there's good things in their account. Like I was auditing one brand and I'm like, hey, look, you have this one video that again, you're not really driving traffic to, but it does really, really well. You leveraging sort of the creative assets that you have. And you're not really taking advantage of this. Why not just take this format and roll it out to other formats? And so happy to talk about that. I have an SOP I can give away, or we can go over if that's helpful, if anyone has any questions on that. But yeah, this is your time to get answers to your Amazon ad questions. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to ramble on here. Fazan saying, hello, Elizabeth. Hello, hello. Hopefully my mic is working. Let me know if you can see and hear me. Thumbs up, comment, say like, hey, audio is doing good. Sometimes this thing blips out. And hopefully that doesn't happen today. But with that being said, I can actually pull up a presentation I did, and I'll just start giving you guys some pro tips and things when it comes to video creatives. Let me see if I can grab this link here. And then again, by the way, typically the way that these things work is that there's not many questions in the beginning. And then if anyone has a question, sometimes we leave it till the end. And then time depending, I try and get to everybody, but sometimes I'm not able to. So, all right. Let's go with Nick. Hey, Elizabeth, with Amazon officially opening AMC access to the masses and ad spend requirements, do you have any materials or suggesting for utilizing custom audiences? Yes, I do. So if you talk to the Amazon reps, typically what they recommend is using the audiences that are going after shoppers that are most likely to purchase or kind of in market. What we've seen be really valuable when it comes to leveraging AMC audiences is building audiences around shoppers who have interacted with your brand but then haven't purchased, in our experience. So doing a little bit more of, say, retargeting specifically. Now, if you're talking about like, say, Amazon DSP ads, retargeting is the one that gives you all the sexy screenshots. Like literally we're running retargeting audiences for one of our brands. Like we're doing full funnel, but their retargeting is like a 28 ROAS. It's like insane in terms of the amount of like that's like, who would not throw more money at that, right? So I would say if your goal is to really maximize the performance, I would say anything that involves retargeting will be really, really beneficial. And those are actually pre-built audiences. Regardless if you have access to AMC or not, you can actually go into your account today. And if you go into any campaign, although we set up new campaigns for these, has been the way that we do it instead of attaching it to existing campaigns. You can actually, in the dropdown, select shoppers who added your product to cart but then didn't purchase. That's like a fantastic retargeting audience. And so yes, I would say in terms of utilization of custom audiences, I would say anything that involves like retargeting, so they interacted with your brand. And then also in our experience, the way that we typically leverage audiences, because in sponsored product ads, it's set up as a placement percentage increase. And so with placement percentage increases, it's very similar to the regular placement percentage. Okay, so your next question, I'm about to answer it. Let's pull this up. So specifically speaking, sponsored ads, have you seen any best ad types to utilize? Yes, this is a fantastic question. So I'm going to get into a little bit of like how you can set it up in terms of like what optimization is available, and then that will kind of help further explain and help you understand our recommendations when it comes to say like match types or the targeting and how you would set that up. So if you think about it, so it is a placement percentage, and very similar to how everyone talks about placement percentages, like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if we got only top of search placements, right? Or if we did only product pages. And if you've messed around with product pages or anything enough, what you'll find is that sort of that low bid, high top of search stuff, it limits impressions, and you don't always end up winning the placements, because what we have found over the years, although this is something we're very much still in testing mode with, but that a higher bid typically gets you the placements a little bit better. And then what we do is we add a placement percentage on top of that to sort of like boost that placement. But honestly, that low bid, high placement percentage, it's a little bit antiquated. When placements first came out, someone came up with that strategy, and everyone kind of latched on to it. But honestly, in practice, we've seen it very much limits your exposure of the ads. And so that's still how the audiences work. Now, what I would love is eventually for Amazon to be able to roll out the ability to maybe like turn off placements or make something only audience targeting. I think that would be fantastic, but we just don't have that capability right now. And then another thing to keep in mind is that, and this is a thing that I think makes audiences in sponsored product ads so freaking powerful, which by the way, you can also attach them to sponsored brand ads as well. Again, then you throw in the mix of the creative. So you got to have a lot of stuff buttoned up. But what we have seen is, so with audiences is you are selecting a targeting type instead of sponsored product ads. So if we say use an exact match targeting, and then you think about it, how many different places our ad can show up on the platform? It's not very many. We're showing up on basically one specific search page. And so with that in mind, if you think about it, it's like any audience is typically like layering. So if I'm only going to show up on this one specific search page, and then I'm attaching an audience to that, for that audience to trigger, it has to be somebody who fits that criteria, who, if you're thinking about it, well, okay, somebody who added to my cart and didn't purchase, depending on your volumes, that audience could be kind of small. And then you're only going to trigger that audience if they're searching that exact search page, which in theory, they should be highly motivated. It should be, like a really, really good targeting, but your volume and amount of targeting there, you're just not going to trigger it that much. And so the way that we've actually been testing out audiences is with auto campaigns. So if you think about it, auto campaigns basically target, all potential sponsored product placements on the platform, which include product pages, you know, rest of search, top of search, just a plethora of different places. And so what this means is that our ads can kind of follow that audience around the platform. So they still have to meet the criteria of the audience, but it doesn't really matter where that that particular shopper is searching. We can kind of show them, you know, if they're on a product page, if they're somewhere else, we're going to come across their visuals again. And if you think about it, the fantastic thing is that with auto campaigns, you're still, I mean, you want to be careful here, right? You should add negatives, maybe pay attention to branding, all of that. But it still has to be relevant to your product. So you're not going to show up anywhere crazy. Again, use your negatives and do optimizations here. But the potential of that shopper to be able to see your ads and come across your ads is going to be quite high. So just due to the nature, like this is kind of a theory. And we're like, okay, so in theory, right? We want the ability to kind of maximize our reach to this audience. And so we like the broader targeting. Some limited testing, I think. In theory, there's interesting ideas of going after like really expensive keywords and then layering on an audience to try and just make sure that you're being a little bit more targeted with who you're going to show up to. That it's kind of more of a theory that we are really, you know, some tests in a couple of accounts. However, because again, it's a placement percentage and you're not going to only target that audience, if that makes sense. If and when it ever changes that we have the ability to only serve our ads, our sponsored product ads to that specific audience, I think that philosophy of being really laser targeted on things gets really freaking interesting really fast. But again, due to the nature of how it works, i.e. placement percentages, and also how that can kind of, you know, being more specific really limits the availability of the audience. We're using it in broader targeting. But that is a fantastic question. Like, hopefully I answered your question. If you have any other ones, feel free to drop them in chat. And again, for any of you joining, welcome to the segment. It is an Ask Junglr anything. So ask me anything Amazon advertising. We'll pull it up like I had for these other questions, and we will dive right into it. As this says happy Thursday to you as well. All right, let's get into it. So as we're expanding the Canadian marketplace, we've noticed that our US PPC campaigns are also visible in Canada. Interesting. Could you advise on the best approach for managing PPC campaigns in the Canadian market? Should we create separate campaigns specifically for Canada, or is there a way to adopt our existing campaigns for the Canadian audience? That is a fantastic question. I would say for any new marketplace, so this becomes a little bit more important when you're looking at like UK, EU, and other ones, is every single marketplace is going to have a little bit difference in search. Now, this is going to be a little bit dependent on your product. So an example would be, we had a product that was going after, I'm in the US, so we call it soccer. You know, overseas in the UK, it's football. Right? Football means something completely different to the US market than it does sort of like European markets. And so when we did a specific keyword research for the Canadian market, and what we determined is that, oh, like the if I remember correctly, the keyword, you know, root word soccer was used in that marketplace. So there it may be transferable. So I said it will be specifically dependent like on the product. You would want to do specific keyword research to determine if there's different root or keywords that are used in one marketplace versus the other. And this is something I see all the time when I audit UK accounts, because the UK does speak English. It's an English speaking country, so it's not like you have to translate things into another language, but oftentimes the root words. And so when I'll go in and look at it, they're like, we're not getting impressions. I'm like, yeah, because nobody's searching for these specific root words. That's a very US based wording that you're using there. So I would say you would want to do that. If you find that there is some transferable root words from the US to the Canadian market, you could maybe use the US as sort of your I would treat it almost like keyword research in theory. Say like, oh, okay, I know that these specific terms tend to work in the US. But in all honesty, what works best in the US does not always work best in Canada, and vice versa. So I would say I would start with doing, and it doesn't even have to be intense keyword research. As you know, we have a whole playbook on how to do product launches, and that includes how we do recommendations for keyword research. And so you're free to follow that, but you don't even need to go that intense. I would just pull it up in a keyword research tool like Helium 10, and I would just say like, what does the lay of the land look like in terms of our keywords? Because what you may also find, and this is very typical, is that the highest search volume keywords in the US are not necessarily the highest search volume in another marketplace, even if they do have very similar root words. And so you want to be very aware of kind of how that specific market works. And so I would recommend, long story short, but hopefully that long story was helpful. I would recommend doing specific campaigns for that marketplace, and then go from there. Answer is great. Yeah, very similar strategy we were testing as well, just starting to test and start of sponsored brand ads. Yeah, I would love to know how that's working in sponsored brand ads, and how you're going about that, because hopefully, yeah, another layers, multiple layers. Which, speaking of sponsored brand ads, if anybody wants me to, I can, or maybe we'll just do this until another question comes in. Which again, by the way, if you're listening in, drop a question anywhere in the chat box somewhere. I will pull it up and I will get you answers to your questions. But this is a presentation that I did, in which I've actually built an SOP on specifically sponsored brand ads. Because what I find is that with sponsored brands, most of the creatives that I see just aren't done well for the platform. And so in my experience, I'll show you. This is like a really interesting thing, because a lot of times what people think is good creatives isn't necessarily like actually the best creatives for the Amazon platform. And so when I was looking at sort of what's working and what's not working, you can see that there's this low sugar food search. And so a lot of times there's these like very stylized you would take a look at that image like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Like, I would love to be able to get a photo shoot like that. But if you notice that the headline here is like the future of protein snacks, which is not very specific to say like low sugar foods, but here you can see high protein, low sugar. This is calling out that it's keto friendly, and also that there are 0 added sugars and how much protein. So this is a fantastic way to really showcase the benefits of the product. And what I've really found, or after we've done an intense analysis of like all of our brands who are doing sponsored, all lifestyle as well as video creatives, it's really making sure that you're connecting your visuals to the intent of the shopper searches is what we found to be really important. And basically the reason why that, if you have, say, like meta ad creatives, they're not always the greatest. Sometimes they translate, but oftentimes they don't really translate as well to Amazon ads. And the reason why is because Amazon ads is super bottom of the funnel, very much intent based. And so when you have the very intent based, if you're creating visuals that you're trying to like say stop the scroll, video ads on Amazon are already quite scroll stopping just due to the nature of movement on the screen. Basically everything else, I'm trying to think, but yeah, everything else on a search page other than video is static. So by their nature, they are eye-catching. As long as you're not just using like say just a static image, like some kind of movement or something, but you don't have to think about, oh, I have to catch them off guard. Like they're already searching for your specific product. And so what we've seen, like this is actually an example, and I have a video here I can play because sometimes videos are like, this is the type of video that if you're looking at like if you're looking at this in search, you may think, oh man, they have a fantastic video. I need to do all of these lifestyle shoots. And there's really good creative elements in here. I guess I scrolled down. There's good creative elements in here, but what I find is that see this opening shot where she's kind of walking across the screen. I don't know if you could see that very well, but like a lot of these visuals honestly are somewhat lost. Like if you notice this one, there's one of the models stretching, like that's just dead space. Even though if you're looking at it from like an aesthetic purpose, it's interesting, but it's not. And so a videographer or someone who's thinking about telling a story might say like, oh, you know, we want to have the model stretching, then we're getting on, it's obvious we're exercising. Like this search was for like exercise trampoline. Like they already know what it is and what it is for. Unless you have like a gifting product where somebody's searching like gift for mom, gift for dad, something like that, they're not trying to figure out what they need. They already know it, unless they're searching something like exercise equipment. But honestly, you shouldn't be throwing money at ads for like exercise equipment because that doesn't have much conversion intent anyways. And so if you go on here, and then the other thing that you'll find is that like the text on the screen. So again, when you're developing your creatives, it's blown up on your own, you know, you're probably working on a desktop if you're doing video editing. But what happens when you do that is you end up getting text like this where it's white and you can't even really see the text on screen. So you have to think really small, mobile. A great thing to do is to like zoom out when you're doing editing and just make sure like from this small space on my desktop, can I even read this? Is the text readable? And what you're found is that they're calling out features and benefits. Although this is a horrible call out because it says like fitness have never been this fun. Like again, they already know that they're searching for it. And there's these other visuals where the model's like, come on, jump with me. Like it's not great, honestly. And so again, some mistakes here, but I'll show you there was a really good element in this video. So this is the opening screen. A lot of times you have the visuals, you're just not using them correctly. So opening scenes in these videos should confirm that this is a specific product that the shopper is looking for. So here again, she's walking across the screen. It could be for the like it's kind of obvious, but it takes me a split second to think, wait, is that the item? There was one really good clip in here where the model is literally like pushing the trampoline towards the camera. That's a fantastic opening shot. And so opening shots like that like pull the shopper in and help them recognize that that is like the specific product that they're looking for, and then bring them on to benefits and features and sort of showcasing the product. So a lot of times you guys have benefits in your bullet points. Maybe it's all the way down on, you know, you in your image stack on like image 4. Those are the things that you should really pull out. And I was on a presentation. I don't think you called it a summit, but I was part of a presentation the other day where Amy Wees, I don't know if you've come across her. She's awesome. But she talks a lot about like AI and Rufus. One really cool thing actually, and I can show you guys. Let me find, all right. Let me remove. Your sponsor brand SOP you put out is fantastic. Grabbed it a couple weeks, incorporated in GPT. Yes, that's right. You did send me the GPT, which was really, really cool. I appreciate you putting that together. Oh, sweet. So here you go. So this is a pro tip. I do have an SOP, which I have not publicly released. I need to tell the team like, hey guys, we need to put this out. And let people get a hold of it. So what I'm doing is just like, hey, if you are listening to this, if you're watching the replay and you go find me on socials, or another good way is you can go to our website, junglr.com, and there's this like, oh, you can't even see it. It's scrolling. There's this option to ask a question. If you just pop in this like, hey, I watched your live, so just chat with us. Like if you watch the live, be like, hey, I watched the live, I want access to your sponsor brand's SOP, like just let me know. I'll be more than happy to send that over to you guys. But yeah, this is an SOP because I did that presentation, and sometimes presentations, like some people are asking for questions on the slides, and sometimes getting the insights from a slide is a little bit hard because you saw I just had like call outs and visuals, but it wasn't as like specific nitty gritty. And so this basically shows you, this is the format. Here's how to get your lifestyle images, and it has a ton of tips. And then I've also added as well, there's creative requirements from Amazon on like specifics and some of the biggest problems we see with just the video creatives. Like you can't have anything where the volume button goes. I've seen people put logos here and that creates issues. So just a lot of other things that you guys should be available, as well as some helpful links to these link directly to Amazon. So if anyone wants that, feel free to ask on any of the socials, and I'll make sure to get that to you guys. Because yeah, Nick's saying he used an AI generated sponsor brands video, and it's running at a 10x ROAS in the first week. So yeah, like that is, the proof is in the pudding. And how we came up with this is basically analyzing hundreds, maybe not quite thousands, but I know it was at least hundreds, multiple hundreds of videos across all the brands. And we were looking for insights. So what we did is we grouped top performing and lowest performing video ads from a click-through rate perspective. But the main thing we were looking at is conversion rates, because sponsor brands video goes directly to the product pages. So you could do headline videos, but what we've seen is that the highest conversions typically are the going from the video to a product page. And so if they're going directly there, they know what the product is, then we wanted to see like, where do the ads convert best? And what we found consistently, it was the videos that immediately showcased the product and then went into specific benefits and features. And those ones had like double the conversion rates or higher of the double the conversion rates or higher of any of the other videos that we see running. And again, I only talk about like the video assets because what I have found is that brands are really struggling to understand what makes a good video creative when it comes to Amazon. And Nick, that's awesome that you use AI generated video. I'm gonna have to like get with you because I'm in the process of trying to come up with a potential internal SOP for that we can give to clients, and then also maybe work on developing some creative assets ourselves using AI. But some of the things that we found, like AI is getting better with consistency. That's one of the things that I found a little bit tricky, is the consistency of the product, because you want to make sure that the product is on point, because you don't want to like showcase the product that's like in a color that you don't have, or there are some hiccups when it comes to AI. So wild world out there. Super, super excited for the future. And with that, again, for anyone just joining in, want to welcome you. If you're watching the replay, hey, although you won't be able to ask a specific question. So if you are listening in, feel free to drop your questions into the chat and I will pull them up and get them answered for you guys all. Other questions that I got this week was how to measure performance on a specific product level. Actually, let me pull that one up as well. If you guys also didn't know, this is another asset that we have. Again, I can actually drop that one into the chat, or I can pull it up because I have a QR code that you guys can scan if you want to just get direct access to that. But in that specific presentation, one of the other big misses that we find, and this is particularly with brands with really large catalogs, is that they're just not really focusing in on what's going to move the needle. So like, you hear it all the time, like an 80-20 rule for Amazon ads, but what we found is that the 80-20 rule in Amazon ads really comes down to making sure that you're connecting your ad performance to actual business performance for the product and adjusting ads that way. What we found is that like most sellers, when they're coming to us, and I talked to a brand just this week, and I was asking them like, hey, when you're optimizing or you're setting up your KPIs because they're using a software, like, are you guys taking a look at like the overall performance of the product and using that to influence your adjustments? Or are you like just looking at ad console or just looking at the software? And the response was like, oh, we're just looking at the software. I'm like, that is the problem. That is why you guys cannot bring your total ACoS down, is because there's a lot of misses. So really, honestly, ad performance doesn't equal business performance. So you have to have good ad performance for the business to perform. But even if ads are performing well, that doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily be profitable. So true profitability marries ads data and business data, but Amazon doesn't give you any way to do that. Now, if you have a tool that does it, fantastic. We have several. But if you don't have a tool that does that, you can get this report and it will answer all of these questions. So I'll go over again, I'm not going to give you guys a whole presentation, but this is the report that you're able to generate with this custom GPT. So basically this report answers all of these questions. So things like, where am I under investing in my best sellers? Where am I overspending with no sales? Where's my ad strategy disconnected from my performance? This is a huge one. What I've seen time and time again, because I've audited like thousands of brands at this point, whenever your ad conversion rate is significantly below your unit session percentage, pretty much every single time I've dug down into that, I have seen that the targeting isn't really good, meaning you're overspending on targets that are not converting. So a lot of wasted ad spend. And then also things like, what is my total ACoS per ASIN? So ACoS, total ACoS, as well as ad sale percentage. So all three of these numbers, if they're up, bad. If they're down, good. And so basically what I do with this report is I take the report and I start looking for mismatches. So things that have high ACoS but low total ACoS, those are actually things that you can push. So if you have low total ACoS, even if the ACoS is higher, that means that those are items that are like really, really well positioned, and maybe the cost per clicks are higher on those specific products. But because you're much more profitable on those items, you can actually invest more in advertising, which again, if you're only looking inside your ad console, you're probably missing some good wins. Some things that have high amounts of percentage of spend, but low percentage of your total sales. And by total sales, I don't mean ad sales, I mean product sales. Those are ones that you're probably spending way too much on. You can pull back. If you have really high sales on an item, but you don't have any ad spend on it, I talk with brands all the day. They're like, oh my gosh, my catalog is so big. I know there's probably products that I'm not advertising on, but I don't really know how to find them or where to, like, you can find them with this report. And so This is the way that I use the report. So what I would do is I would go here, I would sort and scan. So I like filtering by highest total sales or highest percentage of total sales here, or highest percentage of total ad spend. So this is really good. This is sorted by highest percentage of total ad spend. And you can see here, this product's only driving like 6% of total sales. And yet we're investing 11% of our total ad spend on it. So here's an even bigger disconnect. This one's only driving 2% of total sales, and yet we're investing 10% of our ad budget on it. Way too high. And this is pretty typical if you're in like a product launch, maybe. But if you're outside of a product launch, you've started gaining traction, that's too much. And so best thing about this is you could actually take this report and use it like today in your ads account, because Amazon gave us another dashboard, which I freaking love, which is the product. What is it? The products tab inside of Ad Console. So what I do is I go through this report, or my team does, and this is actually how we get results on really large accounts. So there's a couple accounts like we got some insane results for. One of them we added like 1.5 million in top line revenue without having to increase total A costs, like by literally using this strategy. And so what you do is you flag, say the top 3 to 5. If this is your first time doing it, you might just grab 2 of your like strategic movers. So basically the things that either like are underutilized or overutilized. And then what you can do is you can copy those ASINs and you can go into the products tab. And if you search for that ASIN, what it will do is there's a little arrow drop down, and you can literally drop down and see every single campaign that product is being advertised in. And from there, you can start making your ad adjustments because you know that that's the problem product, and then this is where it's being advertised. And from there, you typical optimizations. So we're spending too much negatives, but instead of just like rinsing through an entire account going, oh yeah, I need to add negatives, I need to adjust bids and do it sort of haphazard. This is how you do it super strategic, nitty-gritty. And so it's super easy to put this report together. Is you download a sponsored product advertised product report, you download a sponsored display advertised product report, and then you download a business report, specifically detailed page sales and traffic by child item. 2 things on this: make sure the date ranges match up. And then the second thing is that the data inside of your business reports has an even bigger lag on it. So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll download the business report first just to make sure that I have all the data. It shows in, there's an error that shows up in the reports now, which is fantastic. It used to not show up there. They'll say like, hey, date ranges are on X date. May have some missing data or data. I forget what the wording is, but it'll actually tell you like, hey, there might be some issues here. And then if you select a date range where it doesn't include the date where it may have missing data, then it won't show that error, which is nice. So I would download those reports, and then all you have to do is upload them to this custom GPT. So if you guys want access to that, you can go to junglr.com/tacosbot. Let me grab that and I can drop it in the chat in case anybody wants it. But you can also go to scan the QR code here if you guys just want to do that. But that should give you the ability to like just enter in, just give an email. You'll be put on our email list. I promise you, we won't spam you. You actually get alerts when we go live on Thursdays, which is kind of nice. And then you should be able to get access to the Taco Spot. And that is one report that we developed, I think, a couple of years ago. And so we've been using it quite a lot because, again, we manage catalogs that are really large, really complex. Lots of SKUs. I'm talking like 50,000 SKUs. And so it can be really difficult to be like, okay, so what are the movers? What are the drivers of the performance in this account? Be it good, be it bad. And then that allows you to really just like dive into things and get really, really strategic with where you're going through and you're making those moves. So hopefully that was valuable. And again, if anybody wants access to this sponsor brands SOP, unfortunately, I don't have a really cool like QR code or link I can send you to yet. But if you want access to this, which is like literally the complete guide. It's literally, we built this to send to clients, by the way. When any of our clients are like, hey, what do we do with video assets? We need to create this. We're like, hey, send this document to your creatives team because it will literally tell them everything that they possibly want. Cool. And with that, if anyone else has any questions, I'm just going to show you guys all my tips and tricks. But if this pulls up any questions, or if anyone wants to get into anything, definitely let me know. I want to show you guys a really cool thing that I found in Rufus. And this is actually something that you can use when you're trying to figure out what are the benefits and features that I should be calling out in my sponsor brand video ads. Now, of course, obviously, you can use this to improve your listing and a whole ton of different things. But this is actually something that I've been using when we're working on now and like creating a process for developing sponsor brands video assets. And so this is one of the kind of processes that we've been toying with. Is you can go through here and okay, so it has a retractable handle. All right, good battery usage. Again, you should have done a lot of research when you developed your product. So one recommendation is, hey, just, kind of pull out the benefits and features that you have in your image stack. But depending on the product, sometimes it doesn't have that. So one of the things you can do is you can actually pull up Rufus, and I don't know if you guys can even see that. Kind of small on my screen. Here is some of the questions. So it'll actually like pull up questions. Like it's asking like, does it come with a can't talk storage hook? Can it clean floors? It's a huntable adjuster. What do customers say? That's a fantastic one. So it actually is mining the reviews for you. And it's saying one mentioned, so it's actually pulling out specific things. Positive feedback, it's cleaning power, so it has a lot of cleaning power. Its effectiveness at removing mold, that's an interesting one. And so it gives all of this. So here's one. Does it work on rough surfaces like concrete? What I can tell you is that a lot of times there's a benefit or feature that you haven't even thought of that shoppers are asking about, and the answers are actually in the reviews. So what it's saying is, so the product doesn't, reviews do not specifically mention that. So can it be used on tile floors? And you can basically just go through here asking questions, or you can prompt it. So according to multiple customer reviews. So it's not even saying right here, like it shows it being used on tile. So I think that's a pretty good visual, but it doesn't specifically call out that it can be used in tile on the listing. However, that is found in the reviews. So that's another fantastic way that I found when you're trying to like dig into things or understand like, hey, how do I understand about a product? Or something else that you could do is like go on your competitor's listing, use Rufus and say like mine all of that information, and then input it into maybe even another AI, or just kind of copy and paste and give a document. Honestly, when you're doing competitor research these days, I wouldn't leave out Rufus. I think Rufus is a fantastic thing because again, it pulls out and it's actively learning and generating these questions based on, again, real consumer feedback. So similar, if my understanding of it anyway, is how similar to how the suggested searches may change based on like real-time users and what people are typing into search. Rufus is actively learning from thousands, millions of different users. I don't know statistically how many of them are using Rufus, but it's sort of getting those insights, or there's questions that people are asking on, say, like product pages, because people can ask questions, and then it's actively pulling from those things as well. So wealth of information. If you are not using it, highly recommend digging into it. Obviously, it's a little bit manual. There is that aspect of it, but it's not something to sleep on, is what I would say. Anyways, Awesome. So hopefully my mic's still working, camera's still working. By the way, if this has been valuable, give a thumbs up. I hope it's okay that I'm doing screen shares and things. I know I've gotten feedback in the past that it's been useful. If anyone finds that useful, let me know, because I have a lot of information and free stuff that I give out. So if I can be of help, let you guys know where to find something that could make impact on your ads account, I want to make sure that we get that to you guys. And again, if anyone has any other Amazon ad questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. You got a couple more minutes here. Otherwise, I may let you guys get back to it. And we will pick it up again next week, which, by the way, if anyone wants, again, access to that SOP, feel free to go here, ask a question in our chat boxes. By the way, if anyone has any Amazon ad questions throughout the week, I'm going to let you free. Feel free to use the chat bot. I actually do get those direct emails still. It's in my inbox, which is probably pretty crazy, but more than happy to field those questions if anyone has them. And with that being said, all right, looks like we got a thumbs up. So hopefully that's, again, sounds like it has been useful for you guys, which is awesome. So with that, I think I will let you guys get back to your Thursday, get back to maybe optimizing Amazon ads. And I really hope this has been valuable. Again, if you're watching the replay, feel free to reach out to me if you need access to any of these things. And with that, I will catch you guys all same time, same place next week. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.